Welcome to Musings of a Super Doer with host Christina Kendall. Over the next hour, you will learn what keeps Christina and her guests busy with all their day-to-day life tasks. Now, here's Christina.
Hello, welcome to Musings of a Super Doer. I'm your host and resident super doer, Kris Kendall. I'm so glad you're joining us today. In this episode, and really all the episodes, I'm going to be sharing some random musings of what's going on in my world and maybe what's going on in your world too. So, first of all, I'd like to specifically start with talking about one of my very favorite topics and one that I can go on and on about for hours. So I'll try to, keep my time, be aware of timing here. And that's self-publishing books as a side hustle. And then after that, we'll also go into a quick little chat about driving records, violations, reputation, and such. This is a surprise topic after a situation I experienced last night. And finally, if there's time, we'll talk about happiness and something that I always like to talk to people about. Okay, and if there's time at the very end, we might even go over a few of my recent shows. I always have new shows, and there's a couple that I've been really enjoying. So all right, let's get started. So have you written a book? Or maybe not, but have you thought about writing a book? A lot of you are probably saying yes. And either to yes, you have, or yes, you've thought about it. I used to think that I was like unusual because I wanted to write a book or that I had. But as I would chat with people and it would come up in conversations, I found out there are a lot of people out there who have written a book and it's just sitting on their computer somewhere on a hard drive and they have no idea what to do with it after that. And maybe they've, heard horror stories about what other people have done, or maybe they haven't even finished a book or maybe not even started. And it's just something that's always like been on their bucket list as something they want to do, but they don't really know where to begin. So I'd like to spend this time to kind of debunk some of the myths and common misconceptions that people have about writing books and getting them published, either through traditional publishing houses or more specifically about self-publishing and how you can do it yourself. And this applies to all kinds of books. So it could be fiction, a novel, nonfiction, maybe a self-help or how-to, something about your expertise, your career, whatever is of interest to you. It could be a children's book, a journal, a workbook, whatever kind of book you have thought about writing, or maybe you have written. There is a fairly easy way to get it on a bookshelf in your house or in the hands of readers. And it doesn't take a ton of time, money, or experience. I actually built an entire course around how to self-publish your book. It's called the Self-Publishing Project. Sorry, it's been a couple of years since I've put it together and had to say it out loud. I guess I don't talk about it very often, but the Self-Publishing Project, or the Published Club. That's the name of the company, the Published Club. So if you're to look for thepublishedclub.com, you should find it. But anyways, so I have an entire course around this, but I think that in the next, 20 minutes or so, I can give you the gist of the basics and you can skip the whole course. Okay, so here are some of the common questions that I hear when I'm talking to new authors or aspiring authors, and some of the reasons people are afraid to move forward. Okay, so one myth is that you have to be comfortable with rejection. You're going to send your manuscript or your query letter out to hundreds of agents and they'll all reject you or ignore you, and maybe someday in a couple of years, one person will be willing to talk and take you on as a client. Okay. If you are trying to get published by Penguin or Random House or, one of the big publishing houses, that is probably true. That is probably your path, unless you are in the very, very tiny minority of people who just, are in the right place at the right time with the right person and the right story and the right all the pieces that make the perfect book that a publishing house will just buy with a big advance. For most of us, that is not going to happen. So it is a very tough road to hoe, if that's the road to go. I remember hearing somebody on TV saying this thing wrong, and the wrong way stuck in my head. Sorry. Anyways, so what I always recommend to people, and this is what I've done myself, I've done this with hundreds of clients for literally thousands of books, and that's self-publishing. Now, there's a bit of a stigma in some people's mind about self-publishing, and that is only for losers who couldn't get a real publisher, or people who have, a crappy book that nobody would want to read anyways, and so they just put it out there themselves. Okay, like anything, there's always going to be the bad apples, in the world. But there are a lot of really, really, really great books on Amazon today that were self-published and make millions of dollars every year. Some make millions of dollars every month. And those books would not have been published by traditional means. They just would not have gone, the traditional route for whatever reason, just because maybe at the time that they were written, they weren't popular. Maybe they were the first type of this subgenre or something like that, where publishers, editors, they just weren't looking for that kind of story. And so that author had to put it out there themselves. And then it blew up and took off. And, I'm sure there are some editors that are kicking themselves for not recognizing it when they had the chance. But it is definitely not a given that a self-published book is low quality. Absolutely not. Okay. There's also this isn't even just like a misconception. This is just wrong. 100%, almost in 99.9% of the cases, that you're going to make more money with a traditional publisher than by self-publishing. Now, if you happen to have the next Harry Potter or Twilight or Born Identity or something like that, like if you happen to be one of these amazing storytellers and you're going to get a huge contract and make millions of dollars in advances and royalties from a big publisher, yes, that is the right way to go. For everybody else, if you wrote a thriller, if you wrote a romance, if you wrote a kid's book, you are going to probably make more money in general by self-publishing than from trying to go with a small press publisher, period. I mean, that's just really how it is. I met a woman recently, and she's in one of my writing groups. We had lunch, and she wrote for most of her career. She's an older woman. She wrote for most of her career for Harlequin, and she received, I think it was 7% royalties. 7. So $1 was earned. She received 7 cents. Okay, that is not big money. That's not how you're going to get rich, right? With self-publishing, you can earn upwards of 70% or more. So when $1 is earned, you get 70 cents. So that adds up. I mean, it's just exponentially more than what most small publishers will be willing to pay you. So if you have it in your mind that you need to find a publisher and an agent and go that route, you can do that. Of course, you can do that. If you want to make money or you want to have your book published, like just period published, even if you're the only person in this world who ever buys a copy of it, if it matters to you to have a book published, this is the way to do it. So, just putting it out there. Let's see. We kind of talked a little bit about low quality. The reason that some people will think that a self-published book is low quality is because anybody can do it. You can do it tomorrow. You can do it in an hour if you are ready, right? I could write a book while we're talking right now and upload it and have it for sale, in the next 6 hours on Amazon. that would probably be a low quality book, right? Because it's easy and there's a low barrier to entry and it doesn't cost anything. It's essentially free if you can do, the basic steps by yourself. Um, it is easy for a junky book to just get published without editing, without, somebody reading through it to make sure it's a decent story, that the plot makes sense. It's just, not a mess. So there are some low quality books, of course, that are self-published. The vast majority are really great stories by really great authors who put a lot of money into producing a beautiful, well thought out story. So they're paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for covers. They might be paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for editors. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for um, uh, teams of people to read them, format them, like do all the pieces. So in many cases, you would never be able to tell that one self-published book sitting next to a Random House book is that there's any difference at all, other than the fact that the publishing house label is a little bit different. So, so the quality is not an issue, and I'm sure you have all, if you've bought a book before from a store, a grocery store, a bookstore, a traditional publisher, I'm sure you found the occasional typo and the occasional, you know, duplicate word or sentence, or half a page is printed funny or something like that. I mean, even the big publishers will always have some little mistakes as well. So it's not it's not an automatic like judgment of quality based on whether it was self-published or by a big publishing house. Okay, and then I've also talked to a lot of first-time authors who want to go with a small press, and they respond to an ad on TV. There's different there's a lot of different companies that I stay up really late at night. So at 2 in the morning, I'll see commercials for um, various religious insert whatever religion publisher company.com. And if you've written a book based on this faith or with this faith in mind, we will publish your book for you. Or if you've written a children's book, we will publish your book for you. And you call them, they will publish your book for you. And it only costs $7,000 to $10,000 for them to do that. And they'll give you 50 copies of your book at the end or something like that. I mean, some ridiculous thing. So for a lot of people, they have heard it's very expensive to publish their book because they've only heard of these companies that will charge many thousands of dollars to do what they could do for free if they learned, or for a very small amount of money if they pay a consultant or they use a basically a publishing coach to help them through that process, and they could get it done for $1,000 or something like that. And it's like teaching them to fish, right? If once you learn one time, then next time you do it yourself for free. It's that first time that I think people are often afraid of. Okay, so now that it's essentially free with some caveats there, to publish your own book, and anybody can do it. If you have written a book and it's just sitting on your hard drive, I hope that you will consider publishing it. Now's the time. If not now, when, right? If you think that it might be a little controversial, maybe it's a little steamy and you wouldn't want your kids or grandkids to see that you wrote these words down, or you had these kind of thoughts, or maybe it's political, or maybe it's about relatives, family members that, aren't presented in the most favorable light. Maybe you have a memoir, or you've, essentially documented some time of your own history that you do it in sort of a cathartic method of, like, you just need to get the words out of your head and out of your heart and onto paper. If you think other people might be interested in reading those, you can publish them under a pen name. Now, there's two sides of that coin as well. People have lots of opinions about whether pen names are good or bad, or does it mean that you are ashamed of what you've written or that you're writing something bad and harmful or anything like that? No, I have many, many pen names. And some of it is because I don't necessarily want, when my kids were younger and I was writing the kind of steamy novels, I didn't really want their teachers, the second grade teachers, to be like picking at my books, and that was a little bit awkward. But really, now that they're adults and it doesn't really matter on that end, now I like having separate pen names because each of those names has a different type of book. And because I write across lots of different genres, I like to separate them into different names. Like, this author, Aspen Drake, writes contemporary romance, and Christina Renee writes more young adult or middle grade um, type of stories, and they're separated by different genres so that it's easy for somebody to know if they're buying from this author, it's going to be appropriate for a child to read, for example, or maybe a teenager. And if they're buying this other author name, definitely not a kid's book. That's going to be only for grownups, whatever. Um, or some of them, I have published a couple books under my just regular name, Kris Kendall, and I think those were mostly nonfiction. This was a while ago. I think they were like how to use Twitter and how to format a book, and like some basic like how to self-help type of books. So those ones were easy, to just put out there. And I think I actually wrote those right around the time I was looking for a job. And so I used those as like tools to build some credibility, to show that I understood marketing, and whatever job that I was applying for, I had some of the skills that were required. And I was such an expert in my field that I even had some books out there. These were really short, very short tutorials. But if you are a coach, if you're an expert of some kind, if you are a consultant, you could certainly use some of the guides or some of um, the expertise that you have, put it on paper and write a book that you either just sell to strangers, or that maybe you just print and give to your clients, or that you can refer new clients to when they're making the decision on whether or not to hire you. So there's lots of reasons why you would do it that way. Okay. So back to resources. Once you've decided you're ready to do it, either you have or have not written a book. If you have written a book already, it's probably, I would hope, in some kind of word processing software. So maybe it's in Word, maybe it's in Google Docs or Pages or whatever tool is on your computer. If you have it typed, like old school typewriter, or handwritten, like in a notebook, it will need to get typed up. So you can hire somebody to do that for you. You can, spend a weekend or a few days typing it up yourself, which is probably the best way to do it, because the handwritten one could be your first draft, and then the rewritten one, maybe it's cleaned up. Maybe you'll kind of change it up a little bit. That's probably a good exercise for you to do that typing yourself. But if you don't want to type, or for whatever reason that doesn't work for you, you can certainly hire somebody to do that relatively inexpensively. And so no special software needed. Use Word, use Google Docs, whatever. Just write it out, just like you would write a long essay. I mean, if it's really any kind of book, you'll probably want chapters. If it's more than, 8,000 words, something like that, I would probably recommend chapters. If it's really long, like a epic fantasy, that's 150,000 words. I mean, that might have 100 chapters in it, right? It's going to need a lot, more organization. But yeah, however you can do it very simply in like a Word file. For formatting, there's software that I use that other virtual assistants or other authors use, that makes it super easy to like import your Word file and then 30 seconds, you've got this beautifully formatted book. It will create the electronic versions for you in the right formats. It's called EPUB, that the like a Kindle or a Nook reading device, or an iPad, a tablet, something like that. Those have apps that read EPUB files. So that is done for you, and it'll create a PDF for the print version. And so, in a minute, you've got a beautifully formatted book from your Word file. Now, it might take 5 or 10 extra minutes if you don't have chapters and you need to kind of do a little bit of moving things around or highlighting certain things, but it's very easy. If you need to outsource that, that's probably $25 to $50, maybe $100 if it's really long or kind of messy and they're going to have to spend, an hour or two cleaning it up. Then I would expect to pay a little bit more. But for the most part, for less than $100, you could pay somebody to format your book for you. The exception is if you have something that's super complicated, like a workbook or a cookbook or something that like literally paragraph by paragraph needs to be adjusted to look a certain way. It's going to have, the ingredients in one way and then the paragraphs, and then there's going to be a photo, and then like that might cost $1,000 to have somebody lay that out for you, because it's a lot of work, literally page by page. So keep that in mind. But if you've just written a novel, a science fiction novel, a romance, whatever, a memoir, that's very inexpensive. The next big expense is a cover designer, or for the cover. Now, if you are brand new and you aren't really, you're just getting started, you don't have a big budget, I would recommend going to one of these pre-made. You could do a search on Google for pre-made book covers. And there are designers out there who just kind of for fun in their spare time, they will make a bunch of covers that are just sort of generic, and put it out there for $20, $30, $50. Scroll through those. If you can find one of those to buy, they will put your title on it. They'll put your name on it. Obviously, they'll customize it, usually just the text, to work for you. But that's very inexpensive and very fast. Usually within a day or two, you've got your cover. If you are doing like a cozy mystery or some kind of space sci-fi or something like that that requires a really complex cover, that's probably going to be a few $100s, or maybe even a few thousand if it's needs like custom photography or somebody's got to hand draw it. So there's certainly a range depending on how fancy yours is going to be, but the bottom of that range is very attainable for anybody. And then the other option, if you have an eye for style, or if you're doing nonfiction, it's pretty easy. You can do your own. You can make your own cover. I don't usually recommend this unless somebody really does have some kind of artistic ability, or really kind of knows what looks good, or is able to look at 20 book covers and get a feel for like, okay, I get what this genre needs. So if you think that you can do that, or you want to give it a try, it's free and it's easy to go to Canva, CANVA.com, and they will, it's a tool. You might want to watch a couple of tutorials on, like, you could probably find on YouTube how to make a book cover in Canva, and they'll walk you through it. That was one of the chapters in my course, is how to make your own book cover in Canva. So it's really a pretty easy process. They have lots of templates to choose from. And so, like I said, if you are doing nonfiction, there's tons of, you could just find lots of templates that look good. And then you just change the colors, you change the image, you make it a little bigger, smaller, whatever works for you. You put in your name, your title, and export, save the JPEG, and it's done. You've got your cover. It's amazing. If you are doing like a romance, you might want to buy the photo from like Shutterstock or Deposit Photos or Getty, or one of these royalty free, make sure it's royalty free photography stock image websites, and an image there might be anywhere one, if you find the one picture that you love, it might be anywhere between like $10 and $50. I think it depends. Like if you're just buying one, it's more expensive than if you buy a pack of 10 for 100 or something like that. So the prices vary there, but you could find the picture that you love, get the royalty-free commercial rights for it, and then you take it over to Canva and you upload it into the template that you like. You change the title, you change your name, and there you go. So it's very easy to do that. But before you do that, go to Amazon, do a search for the books, a title similar to what your book is or what your title is going to be. So if you are writing a romance about like workplace romance, for example, do a search for like workplace romance, right? And just as a category or as keywords, and you'll get hundreds of listings of the most popular books with those keywords. Look at those covers and know that the ones that are selling the best, those are the kind of covers that these readers are looking for. That's what they're expecting. And so you want your cover to match that style. Don't go crazy. Don't use a picture of you when you were 17 on the beach, spring break, because it's a gorgeous picture. That is probably not going to be what a reader today is going to look for when they're buying a book. If you're doing a memoir, sometimes using your personal photos is right, but you want to be careful with that. If you, it's really tricky to use personal photographs. I've had many authors ask me to do it, and it's very rare that we end up with that as the cover. Sometimes we do. There have been a few times, but usually it's not the right composition, the coloring's not right, the sizing isn't right, the resolution's not right. So I would recommend going to one of these royalty-free stock image sites and just seeing what's out there after you look at the most popular selling books on Amazon, so that you know what people are looking for. Okay, so your book's formatted. You have a cover. You need an editor. So no matter how many times you have read it yourself, maybe you've been writing this book for 10 years, you have read through it 75 times, you know it inside and out. According to you, there's not a single typo. Please hire an editor. Editors are not very expensive usually. They can be as low as like 0.003 or 0.005 cents per word. Or they can be as high as, 1 cent per word or above. So if it's 1 cent per word, you have a 10,000 word book, that's $100, right? If you have a 60,000 word book, which is maybe more novel length, that's going to be $600. If you've got an epic fantasy, 120,000 words, that's $1,200, I think. Hopefully my math is all right. So, that's where some of the cost will add up, because you want to get a decent editor who's going to read it slowly. If they say that they can do a 60,000 word book by tomorrow or in the next 2 days, they are not the right person for you, because they're going to be skimming it, and skimming is not going to help you find typos, find repetitive words, find, the missing the or it or as, or, those little things that readers will find. So find a decent editor, and you can do a search for indie editor or something like that, and you'll find lots of options. If they come back and say, your 60,000 word novel is going to be $4,000, keep looking. You don't have to pay that much. Okay. But definitely don't try to edit yourself. At a minimum, if you really have zero budget and you really want to do this now instead of waiting for your budget to increase, then find some, I've heard a lot of people say like, well, my English teacher from high school was willing to edit it for me. Okay, that's better than nothing. And that's better than just you reading it, or your spouse reading it, or your child, your adult child reading it. because unless they are in the publishing world, or unless they really understand like dialogue tags and quotation marks, and does a period go inside or outside of it, and like those kind of things that most people don't know unless they're in this industry, they're probably not going to do a great job, and you're going to get bad reviews. Basically, somebody's going to say they should have had a better editor, their editor should be fired, some maybe hurtful things that you don't want your daughter or your husband to be reading just because they're not a professional. They're doing this as a favor to you, and now they're getting bashed. So hire an editor. Okay. So you've got your book edited, you've got a cover for it, you've got it formatted, it's ready to go. You've got this beautiful file that you can put out in the world. How do you do that? So there's two sites that I recommend to everybody. Amazon is the biggie, right? For 80%, I'm just guessing, of all of the books that my listeners here are going to be writing, Amazon is probably the right place for them. If you happen to have a very specialty niche genre, or there might be some cases where Amazon just doesn't really have that market, and you're going to have to go elsewhere, and I can help you. If you want to contact me directly, I can help you find those exceptions. But for the most part, Amazon's going to be your first place. And so the website there is kdp.amazon.com. Okay, so KDP stands for Kindle Direct Publishing, kdp.amazon.com. Set up an account there. Pretty easy, but you do have to give them like credit card. Well, you have to give them your banking information. You have to give them your social security information, etc., because they're essentially hiring you, and they're going to be paying you. When you write your book and you publish it, they now owe you money anytime somebody buys that book. And so once they start paying you, they have to also report it for taxes, the IRS, all that stuff. So before you can even upload your book, they will require that you give them all of your banking. You set up your banking information. So that's going to be a given. I often get emails from clients halfway through, like, well, they're asking for my bank account. Is that a scam? It's not. If you're in the right spot, if you're at kdp.amazon.com, you've logged into Amazon through your regular Amazon account, your shopping account, whatever, you're in the right place. They will take care of it. I mean, of course, there's always risks in anything you do online, but that is the process. In order to get paid, you have to give them that information. So depending on your book, you might want to be exclusive to Amazon. Most of my books are exclusive to Amazon because the readership and the specific genres are on Amazon, and people that have the subscription called Kindle Unlimited are allowed to download or basically borrow from Amazon books for free by paying a monthly subscription price. So I make the most money from these users who are in that subscription model, where they're basically getting the books for free, but I still get paid every time they read them. So most of my books are at Amazon, but depending on the genre, or if maybe you don't shop at Amazon much, or maybe you prefer to read on a Nook and you really want it available on the Barnes and Noble store or through Kobo or one of these other outlets, the other site that I recommend you set up an account with is called Draft2 Digital, DRAFT 2 digital.com. They are a book distributor, but they're an aggregator. So you upload your book one time to Draft2 Digital, and when you publish it, they send it to Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, all the different stores. So you don't have to go set up an account at each of those different stores and try to upload your book there. They do it for you. So it's super easy. Now they do Amazon as well. So if you really want to make this as easy as possible and you only want to have one account, you can go to Draft2 Digital and publish to Amazon from there. You don't need the KDP account. But I never recommend that to clients, because Amazon has like basically real-time reporting. You can see exactly what you're selling, when you're selling it every day. They offer promotions and sales, and they just really have the best reporting. So it's really, really nice to be able to log in every hour if you want and just see, oh, 2 more books sold, 5 more books sold, 1 more book sold. Whereas with Draft to Digital, because they're a third party, they have to wait till like the end of the month, and then they get reports from all the different stores. And so it's a very slow reporting process. It's literally months behind for you to find out how your book is selling on Apple. You're not like, if you publish your book today, you won't have any reports for really a month or two. Whereas with Amazon, when you upload through KDP and your book is for sale today and you go to your Amazon account and you buy a copy, you go back to KDP, you see that 1 copy just sold. Like, it's pretty instant most of the time, unless, occasionally they have server issues that slow them down. But for the most part, that's how that goes. Okay, so you set up your account at kdp.com and Draft to Digital, and you upload. Literally, you publish your book from there. They ask you the title, they ask you for keywords, they ask you which categories fit it most. Is it contemporary romance? Is it um, uh, like family counseling, self-help? Is it poetry? Is it a children's science fiction? Like, whatever it is, you put in your categories. You upload your cover that you made or that you bought. You upload your manuscript in one of these formats. You can upload a doc file. So if you wrote it in Word and you kind of formatted it yourself, you can upload that Word document. If you did it on Google Docs and you did it yourself and you just export it as a DOC file, a doc file, you can upload that. So you don't have to do fancy formatting. And that's it. You set your price and hit publish. And usually within 12 to maybe 20 hours, like by next day, your book is there. It's on Amazon and anybody can buy it. And if you want a paperback, same thing. It's a pretty similar process. The cover is tiny bit more complicated because you kind of have to build a spine and the back cover, but they have a tool that does that for you if you don't have that from your designer or you don't know how to make that yourself. But yeah, I mean, literally anybody in the next 24 hours could have their book for sale for free, based on all those other things that I mentioned, and be self-published. So don't let these fears or some of these other things that other people have told you about stop you if you have written a book. Now, the next obvious question is, how do you sell it? Like, how do you tell people it exists? How do you market it? Do I do marketing with my publishing company? I really try not to market other people's books. I can barely, do the marketing of my own book. So I really don't like to do marketing for other people. But I will tell you, as a very first time author, some of the things that I recommend is to go to Goodreads. If you aren't familiar with Goodreads, go to goodreads.com, set up an account as an author. Once your book is on Amazon or the other stores, you can easily find it on Goodreads and you can kind of claim it as your book. Find the forums or the groups that people are talking about your genre. So if you write detective novels or if you write poetry or whatever it is, find those groups. There's like thousands of groups on Goodreads of readers, and be careful not to come in too hot with buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, because nobody wants to see that. You want to be subtle and you want to build relationships with people. But if you can find those groups of the kind of people who might be interested in buying your books, then that's where you want to start. Ask questions, answer questions. If people are putting things out there, share your story, share what brought you to writing, what made you want to write this particular book. And then just kind of leave it there and wait for people to ask you how do they find it? Where's the links? How much does it cost? Whatever. So it's kind of a subtle way to build some relationships with readers. If you have a great book and a handful of these like diehard readers get a hold of it, they will tell their friends. They'll write reviews. They'll get it out there. Not every book goes viral though. Most are going to take some effort. You might have to advertise, pay for some ads on Amazon, pay for some ads on Facebook, offer free copies. I mean, really, once you've done the work, that money's gone, right? Hopefully you earn it back. You may or may not, depending on the genre, depending on the quality, the length. There's lots of reasons a book does or doesn't sell. Sometimes it's the best book in the world. People just really never find out about it. So it never gets into the right hands. But don't be afraid to offer free copies to people who are willing to write a review. If they are, then those reviews that you get are priceless, and they will, every time you get a good review, that will help in your ranking significantly. And the lower your rank, which means the better, right? Because the goal is to be number one. No, so the lower the rank, the better. And as your rank goes from like 1 million to 200,000 to 75,000 to 10,000 to top 20, that's just going to mean exponential number more people that are seeing it and willing to give it a try and willing to purchase it. So that's where you're going to really make your money, get your book in front of all the right people at all the right time. Okay. So if you are interested in talking to me directly about any of these things, I'm happy to ask questions. I do offer coaching and like done for you services. So I will teach you how to do this, or a lot of my clients just pay me to do it for them in their account. So it's your account. You get the money. Once I'm done, I never go back. And so it's not a lifetime commitment or royalties or anything like that. But you can find me. My publishing company is surrenderedpress.com, surrenderedpress.com, or send an email to Kris, Kris, at surrenderedpress.com. Okay. That was way longer than I anticipated, but I knew I would go on and on about this because it's one of my favorite topics. So take a quick break. I need a drink before my throat gets too scratchy, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Musings of a Super Doer with your host, Christina Kendall. Have a question for Christina or her guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5788. That's 866-472-5788. Now, back to the show.
Hey there. If you're just joining us, I'm Kris Kendall, host of Musings of a Super Doer. Before the break, we were talking about self-publishing, if you've written a book or have thought about writing a book. And now I want to share a little bit of funny-ish story about road, like traffic violations. So let me just start off by saying I am a very good driver. I really am. I think that you can tell a person's a good driver based on how many dents are in their car, because if they have a lot of dents, you know that they hit things, right? My car I got in October of 2021, so it's been over a year, close to a year and a half. 0 dings, zero. I mean, I do park far away from everybody, but pristine. So I am a very good, careful driver, and I drive it every day. So it's not like I don't drive. I do drive. There's 12,000 miles or something on it. So not a ton, but anyways, I'm a good driver. But I got a ticket last night when I was driving home, and it reminded me of this letter that the DMV sent me a couple of years ago. Well, it was 1 year ago, February of 2022. It feels like it was forever ago, but it's really this funny lecture-y grandma scolding you kind of letter that well, anyway, so I'm going to read this to you. Okay. So it says, "Dear California driver," so I'm in California. Drivers with crashes and traffic convictions on their records are at a greater risk of causing future crashes. Okay, I have never crashed. Like, knock on wood, I have never had like an actual accident. I'm in my younger days, I've had a couple like rear end, like fender benders, but like no actual real crash. Your recent record of bad driving places you at increased risk of causing crashes, injury, and death. We do not want you to suffer those consequences and want to help you avoid them. Like, seriously? Okay. Says, we understand that you may believe you are a good driver, and yet your driving record is much worse than the average California driver. While you may be a good and safe driver most of the time, your record reflects at least momentary lapses in driving judgment. At highway speeds, a moment of carelessness can become a tragedy. Good, caring people who make careless decisions while driving can cause injury or death. Okay. In an effort to urge you to drive safer, we are offering you a choice. You can choose to prevent further action from DMV by avoiding additional traffic convictions and by not causing any crashes. Okay. However, if you choose to continue your unsafe driving, the penalties will increase and eventually lead to probation, suspension, or revocation of your driving privilege. We believe you are capable of making a change to become a safer driver, but it is up to you to do so. If you do not want to change, your driving will continue to present a risk to yourself and other road users. If you want to change and become a safer, more responsible driver, you can. We hope you will decide to change, but the choice is yours. Like, it is the most crazy. Like, when I was reading this, I kept checking the name at the top of the letter to see if it was my son, my 18-year-old son who drives crazy. And I'm like, it had my name on it. They're saying all of this to me. I have never had a crash. I have never put pedestrian lives in danger. So these two violations and lapses of my judgment are both from the exact same spot. The exact same violation is a red light turn on red from this one corner near my house that has never had a light. It's never had a stop sign. There is no stop sign still. But there's never had the camera. And then all of a sudden they put the camera there. And so everybody who is used to just sort of rolling through when there's no traffic, like you can see for miles beyond, you look, no cars are coming. So you sort of roll through and go, okay, apparently I did this twice in about 7 months, right? One in March, one in September. Okay. Um, so I had 2 points on my records. They sent me this letter and it just, whatever. I should have gone to traffic school for at least one of these, then I would have avoided the letter. But I just think it's so funny. Like, who wrote this, number one, and who approved it? Like, it's such a grandma lecture-y kind of letter. Like, this is not uh I don't know, professional. It's not like there's nothing that makes me feel like I should change other than just being yelled at by, a little old lady with a cane, or like, I don't know. There's just something about this that really I think is very funny, but also very kind of annoying. So, anyways, yesterday I'm driving home. There's a good amount of traffic. I will be honest, I was not 100% paying attention. Not in an unsafe way, but just sort of like zoned out going home. And then I remembered I had ordered dinner at a different exit. So, I needed to get off before my home exit. And so I was just about to pass it and there was no cars behind me. So I crossed a couple lanes and I at the last minute hopped into the exit, but I was past where like the lines are that you're supposed to be. So I kind of went over the shoulder a little bit, where it's like gravelly to get off. And it was fine. Again, nobody was behind me, no other cars coming. So it's not that it was super unsafe or that I put anybody in danger, but I mean, it's not allowed. Fine. So I get off and I get pulled over and he tells me that's why. And whatever. I think that I'm hoping it's not super expensive. And I'm hoping that I can, just take the traffic school and I won't have these points anymore. But I just thought that this was funny. This letter is so, crazy, and maybe it helps other people choose not to kill people on the road. I hope it does. But for people like me who just roll through reds every now and then, turning right in a very safe and controlled manner, it's a little much. But anyways, okay. So I won't bore you anymore about that. I am just so glad that you were able to join me today. We have a really exciting show planned for next week. I'm going to have a special guest named Aaron Ayuvia. Ayuvia, I believe that's how it's pronounced, a PhD. He wrote a book called The Things We Love. And so just in time for Valentine's Day, so that should be fun. And then we're also going to be talking about face yoga, just another random thing that I enjoy. So you won't want to miss it. Until then, stay safe and keep doing.
Thanks for tuning into Musings of a Super Doer with Christina Kendall. We hope you've enjoyed today's show and look forward to having you back next week. Until then, have a beautiful week.